How did you find out where I lived? So, Halloween. Happy Halloween, everyone. Well, it's not today, is it? It's in a couple of days. I've got my pumpkin ready, and nothing particularly scary or spooky about this video, apart from maybe the prices of some of these fragrances. We're going to be doing 5 niche recommendations, niche fragrance recommendations for you. This isn't necessarily a top 5 list. These are just some fragrances that I'd love for you to check out, which would be fantastic. I have got a top 20 autumn fragrances coming out in mid-November, but for now, please enjoy these 5 niche recommendations. And so here I am with some lovely niche recommendations for you. So the first one I'm going to recommend is, I literally put it in this, I can't actually have it outside of the box. I'm too frightened because it's quite an expensive bottle. It's my good friend Chris's favourite bottle of fragrance, or he might like the original a bit more, but I prefer the Parfum Cologne version. This is, of course, Enigma by Roja Dove, the Parfum Cologne version. I much prefer it to the original. I think it's because, to me, it's a lot softer, and yet it's very soft, but it has a lot more of a vibrance. I think that the original Enigma is very, very condensed within itself, and I don't really like that. I actually like the more powdery element that this fragrance gives off. It's lovely. It's got that woody Coca-Cola vibe that people talk about a lot, and it's just very warming, and the woods are so expensive. You know, they're just so rich in that way, and you can just tell that they're quite pricey. There's some real good ingredients put into this one. It's a beautiful fragrance, very sophisticated fragrance, very mature fragrance. I actually wore this in Edinburgh to a Michelin-star restaurant. That's how much I loved it, and that it really suited that vibe. You know, it really suited that expensive and rich vibe. So that is my first niche recommendation for you in the autumn months. Second recommendation will be a surprise to nobody, and that is Royal Oud by Creed. Of course, I did a scent story on this recently. Very similar in vein to Enigma, with that airy, regal, expensive vibe. I think that that's really where my taste is shifting to. Things that are woody, things that smell pricey, but they aren't congested. And a lot of these fragrances, like the Oud Satin Moods of the world, they're just a little bit too dense for me, and that's not really where my vibe is at the moment. That's not really where my style or taste is currently. It's more in this element, so you're going to be seeing and smelling a lot of these kinds of fragrances. Peppery, woody, regal, spicy, incredible. I've done a review on this, but I also did a scent story on it, so you can see both of those. But I love it, just absolutely fantastic and worth every penny. And not just that, but it lasts a very long time also. Next is this. This is from the House of Sweetoft, and this is X Oud. Now, this one is a fragrance that has, again, similar in vein to the other two that I spoke about just then, which is very oxygenated, has a lot of space, and it's great. Really, really good. A lot more herby, I'd say, with this one. And again, we've got 2 fragrances that have the name Oud in them, but they don't necessarily have that oud tone. There's a little bit of oud wood, but it's more like the creaminess of oud wood and the herbaceousness of oud wood that's in here, rather than this just being, you know, some kind of like oud wood straight off clone. The only thing that irritates me with this, and I do love it, and I think that it actually has a really magical quality that I want to get into, this actually reminds me of like a sunset. A sunrise, actually. It reminds me of like the smell of a sunrise, which I will, of course, do a review on. But here's my only problem with this. The opening's not very good. In fact, I'd say that the opening is bad, to be quite honest with you. The opening is very chemically and quite medicinal and synthetic and not good, and that's going to put people off. And that is a genuine criticism I have about this fragrance. The opening is not good, but literally 2 minutes later, you've got a very different story, and you've got a very, very magical fragrance that reminds me of just the, you know, like the herby smells of like a sunrise, and especially this kind of time where you've got the autumn leaves and that kind of smell that's coming from them that's very, very earthy and woody. It's like that, but it also has some herbs as well. It's lovely, and I want to do a review on it very soon. Number 4 is from the house of Slumber House, and this is Fern. This is their latest release. Wow. I mean, when I heard that Slumber House were doing a fragrance again, I just was so excited. I'm a bit of a Slumber House fanboy. I love their work, adore it actually. And this is not something that I was expecting from them, honestly. Slumber House, or Josh Lobb, who's the guy behind it, he usually does fragrances that are very dark, very dense, very oily, very skanky sometimes. You only have to look at things like Norn or Jiki. My favourite from them is, of course, Keist. Keist is like this peachy hay fragrance that's just so amazing and really stole my heart. But this is completely the other way. This is spicy, it has some cinnamon, has a lot of incense, but it also has coconut. The closest thing that actually reminds me of this is Mizza by Christian Dior. Now, if you're a Mizza fanboy, such as myself, don't go crazy, don't go wild, don't freak out. Mizza is, of course, now discontinued, long discontinued. I've got a huge bottle of it. But it was a very, very popular fragrance that became like a cult classic. And the reason being is it had this sort of like old woman-like smell with that cinnamon and incense and florals. But yet it just seemed to work so well. It's beautiful, but this has got a lot of coconut. This is a lot more summery, a lot more springtime, a lot more shiny, and it also has a little bit of sunscreen. It's a really, really intriguing fragrance. I've actually got a review of this coming out tomorrow, and that's going to confuse you even more because in this video I don't have a beard, but in that video I do. But yeah, it's a beautiful fragrance by Slumber House, really good. And my final recommendation is a recommendation I'm going to be talking about a lot. Have you ever had like a piece of music that you heard maybe 6 months ago or a year ago and you thought, you know what, I really like that. I know that I really like that. But then, maybe 6 months or a year down the line, you suddenly hear it again and you're like, hang on a minute, I adore this. I adore this piece of music. Now I really get it. I knew that I liked it initially, but now I absolutely adore it and love it. Well, that for me is SM Cafe. I smelt this more than a year ago, thought it was fantastic then, but as it came into September, I re-smelt this and I have been wearing it ever since. I have used a lot of this fragrance. This is incredible. My favourite coffee fragrance probably ever. I know that there's other coffee fragrances I know that people really love, Follow by Kerosene, and I haven't even smelt that yet, and so I will reserve my judgment until I smell that. But this really just has got everything for me because it's a very, very balsamic fragrance that has got all that coffee, but it also has things like beeswax and rum and patchouli and vanilla. It's an absolute symphony, an absolute harmony of a fragrance using coffee, of course, as its main element. But some coffee fragrances are difficult to wear. This really isn't. This is something that has given me compliments, given me a good amount of attention, and it's just fantastic. If you haven't smelt this and you like coffee fragrances, you like vanilla fragrances, you love gourmand fragrances such as I do, you really have to check out SM Cafe. I'm going to be doing a top 20 autumn fragrance list this year in the middle of November. That is easily going to be in the top 5. It's phenomenal. Anyway, hope you really enjoyed this video. Hope you got some interesting fragrance recommendations from this. And until I see you next time, until I see you tomorrow, in which I'll be reviewing Fern, I'm the Fragrance Press, and thanks for watching.